Some people are born with all of the good genes and leave the rest of us to deal with the leftovers. That's not to say that everyone in the world isn't beautiful, but some attractive people throughout history have made people's jaws drop literally. What do you consider beautiful? A symmetrical face or something with a strong jawline, blue eyes or some other random feature? Well, it's safe to say practically everyone would say these people are pretty cute, regardless of their type or preference. Keep in mind that we are not considering their actions through life, just the superficial look of their faces. Plus, today's beauties aren't on this list because you already know them through social media or Hollywood. Instead, we're looking into the past to examine the most beautiful people in history. Check out these gorgeous images so you can also gaze on their beauty, or maybe you will disagree. Barbara Villiers. Barbara Villiers grew up during a time when practically everything was banned in England. In protest, there was a backlash from hedonistic parties that went against the grain of what people expected out of society. Villiers was considered a woman of great beauty, who had no problems throwing her looks around to get what she wanted. She had no qualms about covering up either, preferring to show off what she was born with for some extra attention. She's said to have romanced people like John Churchill, the ancestor of Winston Churchill. She definitely had no problems getting around. Mata Hari. Mata Hari, originally Margarita Geertruida MacLeod, was a Dutch exotic dancer who worked as a spy in World War I. She was known to have seduced diplomats and military officers with her twirling hips and batted lashes. She managed to worm the secrets out of them with her trickery, but was eventually caught by the French government and arrested for espionage. Despite being sentenced to death, she is one of the most famous female spies in history, because she knew how to weaponize her looks for the good of her country. Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette was known famously for the saying, "Let them eat cake," but she was also known for her strikingly good looks. In fact, many movies and TV shows have depicted her opulence and extravagant lifestyle, and for excellent reasons. She was known as having a very radiant complexion, and was so much of an extrovert that even her husband's father was swayed by her personality and kissed her. Unfortunately, she lived during a time in France that wasn't the best. We all know where the rest of her story goes, but that doesn't detract from how beautiful she was. Helen of Troy. Helen of Troy is known in the history books as the woman with a face that launched 1,000 ships. This was not only because she was beautiful but because Paris also stole her from King Menelaus, the king of Sparta. Unfortunately, most historians have considered her cheating on her husband, and that Helen of Troy didn't actually want to be rescued. However, the truth is difficult to figure out from the lore. Beautiful or not, she's the perfect example of how poorly society and history have mistreated gorgeous women. Montezuma II. Montezuma II was an Aztec emperor with the cojones to stand up to Hernán Cortés, a Spanish conquistador who wanted to capture the land in Mexico. He managed to expand the Aztec Empire from Honduras all the way to Nicaragua, but his subjects had problems with his demands for tribute. However, a Spanish soldier described him as being of a good height and quite slender, with a cheerful face that had a scanty black beard. Unfortunately, there are no accurate artistic images of Montezuma II from the Aztec perspective. Willem Mons. During the early 18th century, Willem Mons was called one of the best-made and most handsome men anyone had ever seen. His sister was taken by the Tsar, Peter the Great, which granted him access to the Russian court. This allowed him to influence Russian society, which was relatively easy to do with his charming good looks. However, this led to rumors being born, one of them being that Mons got into the Empress' good graces, which angered the Tsar immensely. Mons was quickly arrested and decapitated in the city square. To set an example to the rest of the public, the Tsar then pickled Mons' pretty head and kept it in a jar beside Catherine's bed. Jack Kerouac. Jack Kerouac was a novelist of the early 20th century, who definitely had a James Dean thing going on. Beautiful as well as intelligent, he was a novelist as well as a poet, pioneering the Beat generation. He wrote spontaneous prose covering many topics, ranging from travel to jazz to drugs and poverty. He's considered the inspiration for the famous people of the 1960s, including The Doors, the Beatles, and Bob Dylan. He played fast and loose with his words in life, as he was known for being a heavy drinker. A shame that he couldn't have taken a healthier approach so that he could have graced us with more of his face and work. Shaka. Also known as Shaka Zulu, he was one of the most influential monarchs of the Zulu kingdom. He maintained a pretty big empire on his own on the southern tip of the African continent, mostly through the innovative ways he taught his soldiers how to fight. And it was because he was a warrior that his depictions in paintings and statues are so attractive. He was muscular throughout, which meant he always had his summer bod ready for whoever crossed his path. His enemies described him as ugly, but they were probably just jealous haters. Alma Mahler. Alma Mahler was actually one of the most renowned female composers in the world. It's not surprising that not many people know of her, but she was a renowned socialite for her ability to compose music and striking beauty. She was considered a classical Edwardian beauty, with her long curling hair and clear pale skin, with a cleft in her chin that added to her beauty. She definitely knew how to wow a camera too, as there are no photos of her out there that aren't strikingly beautiful. Tiernan. Tiernan was a famous baseball player, but that's not why he had so many fans. Many women became interested in the sport just to watch him slide over the bases in those tight baseball pants. He played for the New York Giants and once scored 6 runs in a single game, which very few baseball players have accomplished since then. People probably thought he was pretty shy, because he generally avoided the press and didn't make any protest if an umpire made a questionable call. That's okay, women like the silent type anyway. Alexander the Great. While Alexander the Great was mainly known for establishing an empire that ran from Macedonia to Egypt and Greece to parts of India, not many people know that he was actually quite attractive. He was also known for his excellent hand-to-hand combat skills, meaning he was likely quite ripped in his day. Historical reports have stated that Alexander the Great was quite stocky, muscular and incredibly handsome. However, he was unable to grow a beard of any kind. That's okay, we're sure Alex probably didn't need one to improve his looks. Almanzo Wilder. Almanzo Wilder was the husband of Laura Ingalls, which doesn't seem like much, until you discover that he was her muse for her story, Farmer Boy. He was a farmer who built a dream house for his wife, charming Ingalls over with his sparkling baby blues. Who wouldn't swoon for a man who makes a home from scratch? He even went with her to author events, standing by her side and allowing his wife to be the center of attention instead of taking it for himself. We could stand to have more men like that in the world. Virginie Amélie Avegno Gautreau. Virginie Amélie Avegno Gautreau was also known as Madame X, the subject of a painting done by John Singer Sargent. People described her as being similar to a deer, striking but also quite delicate. Sargent believed that her appearance should be captured as such, but the revealing of his painting caused quite a scandal. Many said that Madame X was much too promiscuous, and both the artist and the subject were publicly mocked. Sargent managed to escape to London, but Gautreau lost her fortunes and died in anonymity. It seems people just couldn't handle her vibe back then. Tenzing Norgay. Not many people know the name of Tenzing Norgay, but he is one of the first 2 people to scale Mount Everest. He began mountaineering in the 1930s when he was chosen by Eric Shipton, mostly due to his warm, charming smile. Norgay had a gleaming grin with perfect white teeth, but that wasn't the only thing going for him. He was quick-witted and had a warm appearance that was quite pleasing to the eye. In fact, he captured the eye of 3 other women with whom he eventually married and had children. Sir Walter Raleigh. The English explorer known as Walter Raleigh was the favorite courtier of Queen Elizabeth I. He helped with the colonization of North America, defended England from the Spanish Armada, and sported a stylish beard that was ahead of his time. From the paintings depicting Raleigh, he knew how to dress in style, wearing expensive fineries and an earring in one ear that definitely accented his extended features. No wonder Queen Elizabeth I took such a liking to him. It makes you wonder if there were other rumors about them at the time. Cleopatra. Cleopatra was considered in the history books to be a seductress of some kind of both Julius Caesar, Marcus Antonius, and Augustus. She was a master of seduction and romance,